How are things going for you? Like trying to find your way and trying to find like your, doing with all the things that we just mentioned a second ago. Like,
Yeah.
are you doing a lot of it by yourself still? Like, are you collaborating and like sort of building a team at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, I've been trying. I think like moving here to a new city and starting everything from scratch and not having any friends was really difficult. But now I've kind of, I've gone through waves. I think all musicians do where, I'll have like a few months where I'm really motivated. I'm like, let's do this. Let's work. Let's find new people. I'm reaching out, messaging. And then I have a few months where I'm like, oh, I don't know if this is going to happen. I don't know. It's not really stable. So I won't really put as much work in.
Yeah.
But I think now I'm just now I'm starting to kind of reach out and not only ask to record at places, but ask for more collaborations, ask for people's advice. There's a studio in New West that I just found out about, funnily enough, from my work. There's a construction worker that came in and he was like, hey, like I make music too. I'm a producer. I was like,
yeah.
oh, so cool.
Yeah.
So I got his Instagram and I went there and I was like, this is awesome. And, they're like super willing to teach me how to do engineering and how to be a better producer. So I was like, okay, like this is kind of more what I was looking for. And it just came from the most random place. I would have never thought, I was reaching out to all these producers and engineers and studios and like definitely, they're willing to work with you and like record you and mix you, but it's hard to find people who want to invest in you. And here I am, at work thinking, oh, I don't know if this is going to happen. And the random construction guy comes in and he's like, hey, yeah, no worries.
That's crazy though. How that can happen from the place like least expect it. So how is that going right now at this place? Like,
It's good. Yeah, I'm going there later today actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've only had 1 or 2 sessions, but the main engineer there, he just graduated from Nimbus.
Excellent.
So he's still pretty like fresh into it too. And I was thinking about going to Nimbus. So he's like, why don't I just like teach you what they taught me? Just, buy Pro Tools.
Yeah.
Learn the basics and I'll teach you the rest.
Incredible.
And I was like, oh my God, this is basically what I want. Like this is my goal. I want to be an engineer and I want to own my own studio. Right. So it's pretty awesome. Yeah.
I think that's amazing that, when I hear stories like that of two people sort of coming up together, with similar interests, similar goals, you guys can teach each other along the way, grow and develop. That's going to be super rewarding. I love a lot of things that you just said. And I also try and be that person for the artists that I work with as well. Not only just a place to come to where a mic is set up and they can, sing or rap, but to be an educational experience also. To teach engineering lingo, to, give the artist a chance to sit in the chair in front of Pro Tools, see what things look like. I think that the more that can happen, the better off you're going to be. Like, and your willingness, your openness to want to learn how to engineer is also going to be such an asset for you, because we were talking about this, I can't remember last week or the week before, but very often artists will have so many ideas in their head, but not a clear vocabulary of how to communicate them in like EQ, compression, reverb terms.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So yeah, I think that's really cool. And you'll be like years ahead of the competition in that sense by being the artist and the engineer at the same time. So
Yeah.
that's super exciting.
Yeah, well, that was something I kind of figured early on, was like when I was in Toronto and I was first started recording professionally, it was like I really enjoyed making the music and listening to it afterwards. But what I also enjoyed a lot was like the process. So I'd watch, engineer, shout out to Jeff. He's like this 60-year-old engineer. He's been doing it for a long time. So I used to just watch him do it and I was like, whoa, like this looks really complicated, but it's really cool how he can like put that effect on my voice and like this sounded so raw before and now it sounds like so crisp.
Yeah.
So I was always kind of interested, and I saw, there's some female, engineers and producers in the game, like One to Girl and stuff like that. And there's this girl named, I don't know her last name, but her name's Angie. She's from Toronto. She's an engineer for like The Baby.
Okay.
And stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
And I started seeing those like females and I was like, wow, this is like a whole different side. Like I feel like this is, I don't know, I don't want to say more respected, but I feel like there's a lot more that goes into it than just performing. Of course, performance is really hard. I know I've done it, but like I feel like engineering, there's a lot more aspects. You need to be able to work with the artists, know exactly what they want, know all the lingo, know all the, how to use the DAW and things like that. So I was just really respected it. And I was like, wouldn't it be cool if I was like the third female who is like, doing it and working with all these artists? I just thought it was so much cooler.
I would love to see more female mixers. It really seems to be a male-dominated industry, recording and mixing and mastering engineers. I mean, they're out there, but what I've learned over the years is that mixing is as much about the technical side as it is about the emotional side. If I could describe what mixing is in like give someone the elevator pitch of what mixing is, it's like how the song feels. You're responsible for like the delivering the flavor and the feeling of the song at the end of the day. And I don't want to speak in general terms here, but I think that it's fair to say that women overall are probably more in touch with their feelings than men for the most part.
No, it's very true. Yeah, women are definitely more on the higher EQ scale. Yeah,
of
for sure.
like intuition and feelings and emotion and being able to communicate those with a lot more easily. So the more female mixers that we can get in the game, that's going to change things in a really good way, I think.
I agree with that. Yeah, I think that's why it's been difficult for a lot of women to succeed maybe in the industry, because I feel like definitely the emotion is important in portraying like what the song is trying to say, what the artist is trying to say, but it's also very logical and technical.
Yeah.
And it's not like a super strong suit, at least for me as a woman. It's not always been my super strong suit to like be able to sit and focus for 8 hours on something really technical. So I think it's like you have to do a lot more training, but that's why I feel like it's almost more impressive to me. Not saying that it's not impressive for the males, but it's like almost more impressive to me that a woman is able to do that, especially because most of the artists, like the hip hop artists, are male, of course. So also working with them and doing the mixing and mastering is like, it can be probably pretty difficult. So it's like, it's really impressive. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough, and it's super underappreciated.
For sure.
I think someone used this analogy before about, lighting on a film set, where like you don't notice it unless it's done poorly. You know
exactly.
what I mean? Yeah. And like if the actor is like black and there's like in the shadow, like, well, hey, come on guys, someone's not doing the job here.
Yeah.
And mixing is that way as well. I find like it's, you hear incredible mixes by like top engineers, and the average listener just says, I love this song.
Exactly.
But if somebody fucks the mix up, we're noticing, like, and it's too bad because there are awards for mixing at the Grammys and things like that, but still, like, a lot of these people are my personal heroes and they're very unknown.
Yeah.
Just like,
that's true. Yeah. I just saw an interview like with Academics, and he was saying exactly that. He's like, basically like the real heroes of the music industry are the producers and engineers and the people who master, and like nobody really knows about them. Like if you ask any like regular person who doesn't work in the music industry, like who's your favorite engineer, who's your favorite producer, they're not gonna know.
Yeah that doesn't
who's
mean
your favorite
anything.
artist? Oh, Katy Perry, like right away, right?
Yeah I mean, the one, maybe two that come to mind are maybe mixed by Ali, who does, Kendrick Lamar and SZA, that whole camp. And he's become what I would consider like a celebrity engineer. Because he's also like very involved in the community, does a lot of interviews,
well,
yeah, that's a little more than just an engineer, but there's very few I can think of.
Yeah, because I think a lot of like engineers, I feel like the reason that they maybe didn't want to be the artist is because they like being behind the scenes. They don't really want to be in the spotlight, right? Like on stage performing. They just want to make the song sound good, and that's it. So maybe that's also part of it. It's just they're not really people who want to be.
No, that's a great point. And a lot of them are very secretive. I mean, probably the top mix engineer, arguably of all time, is Serban Ganea. He's mixed more hit records than probably anyone. Like, if you name a pop song in the last 20 years or a hit song, like, he's on it. And there's like 2 photos of him on the internet.
Yeah.
Like,
well, that's kind of cool.
It's so hard to find shit on this guy. He's
cool.
like worth, like, apparently I've heard that he takes 8 points on top of his mix, which is like really, really high. So a point is like a percentage.
Got it. Okay.
And if you look at like, if he's collecting 8 points on Taylor Swift, Katy Perry, like all these people over the years.
Yeah.
It's like, this he must be on an island somewhere.
Probably, probably why he's so secretive.
But like, it's so hard to find shit about him, and he likes it that way. He's okay with that. He doesn't. A lot of engineers release, mix tutorials. There's a platform that I follow called Mix with the Masters, where they have, a lot of really good content with Grammy-winning people, kind of inviting you in their studio and showing you their workflow. But like, Serban's nowhere to be seen on that. Like. But the people who know, I think we all respect and love him, and he's definitely got a reputation. But what you said a minute ago rang very true for me about engineers not wanting to be in the spotlight. Maybe they, and for me that's not 100% the case, but I mean, my journey that led me here today was that I used to be the artist. 20 years ago, I started making records, and I don't even know what software we were using back then. Like, some cracked software off of LimeWire or Kazaa, and making records in our basement. And then in 2005, I got a MacBook Pro, and I got GarageBand.
Nice.
Classic. And it was, Reverb was a slider from 0 to 100. That's that was it. We didn't have plates and halls and chambers and diffusion and pre-delay, and we had reverb was a slider. Compression was a graphical thing of numbers that looked like a math equation in a box. It was so basic, but we could make records and we could throw loops together. And I put out 5 albums between 2006 and 2018.
Wow.
And around 2018 was the last time I put a solo project out. But along the way there, I realized, because of my personality being introverted and not being the go-getter type, the person that is like, oh, listen to my music, that I found that, I could still get the joy of making music, creating, helping other people, but by being in the chair.
Yeah. No, that's exactly how I feel too, right? Because even for me, when I perform and do my shows, my social battery is like, it gets super, super low really quickly. So, once I'm done my show, let's say I do a 10-minute set, I'm out of the door 5 minutes after. I'm like, I got to go home. I got to go lay down. I just want to eat some French fries and chill. So I'm learning. For me, I used to think I was a really extroverted person, but as I'm getting older, I'm realizing that I'm actually more introverted than I thought. And that's why the engineering and like mixing is drawing me more in, because it's something where I can be in my own space and I don't have to really socialize too much or be around too many people, and I can still enjoy music. Yeah.
Of course. Yeah. No, I mean, I think you nailed it there. And if you get to the point where I feel like I'm at now, which has taken me a long time, I mean, you don't even have to meet anyone. Like, people are emailing you shit.
Can you mix this for me? Yeah.
People that aren't even in Vancouver are sending me stuff to mix, and that's like, that's kind of ideal. That's what I want. I'm
that's nice.
like, have my space here, close the door, have my coffee, and kind of work on music, be creative, and I like it that way. But it has taken a while to get to this point. Definitely, there's.
Man, yeah. Even like me, just like starting to even learn the basics, because I've been producing for like about 2 years now. So making beats is getting a lot easier, but in terms of even just mixing, the drums, it's difficult. Like it's really technical, and there's so many things that I know nothing about. And when I look at like graphs and charts, and I'm like, what does this mean? So I'm realizing, like, it's, being an artist, I don't want to say it's easier, because it has different challenges, I think. But I think for me, being an artist comes easier. It's a little more natural for me. Writing is like super easy. I can write a full song in like 20 minutes. So writing and recording is super easy. But when I look at like engineering and mixing, I'm like, wow, this is like a whole nother world. It's like doing math. You said it's like a math graph. It's like really difficult.
It is. I don't know if of course there's room to break the rules, and it is massively creative. But like you said, like you can't learn to mix in 20 minutes.
No.
But someone can write a really catchy hook in 20 minutes, no problem. And that could be a song, right? Yeah. So they're very different in that aspect.
Takes years.
It's taking years. Yeah.
And you're still going. That's the thing is like, I'm sure like even some of the engineers that you mentioned, like even now they're probably still learning, because another thing is the technology changes and it evolves
massively,
right?
Yeah.
So you also have to like get used to and adapt to new DAWs or like new updates like every few years. So I feel like that's something that's never gonna be boring. It might be difficult, but it will never be boring.
No.
That's for sure.
And now that you mention that, it makes me think of 20 years from now, we don't have a clue of what the state of music is going to be like or what technology we're going to have, but there will eventually come a point where it'll be the same thing that happened with digital or with analog and hardware, where that transformed into Pro Tools, into the computer. And now we're in that era, but like there will be another era.
Oh, for sure.
And if I'm still alive, like I'm going to need to learn that basically from the ground up again.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is nuts to think about.
Yeah. Well, even the first engineer I worked with, the older gentleman I mentioned before, Jeff, he was a really big engineer in like the 80s, right? He did like the Dirty Dancing soundtrack, things like that. He
cool.
produced Nelly Furtado, things like that. And even him, like a few years ago when I worked with him, he still was saying to me, he's like, wow, it's so amazing like what these DAWs can do nowadays. Like back in the day, we only had a tape and you had to record everything all in one. And if you wanted to punch in, you had to cut the tape and put it back
razor
together.
Blade,
yeah, and put
literally.
it back together. Yeah. So even that, I'm like, wow, I can't even imagine, 20, 30, 40 years from now, how much the equipment changes, but also like the music too, right?
Yeah. It's crazy. It's good and bad. I mean, we've got like a hyper saturated market now where the barrier to entry is nothing. I mean, it's you can make garage bands on the iPhone now.
Yeah.
So anyone can make a beat. And,
Totally. Yeah.
the built-in voice memos on your iPhone, like the compression, the technology in that, there's compression built into the vocal voice memo, and it sounds really good. By the way,
they have apps that write a whole song for you.
Yeah.
Like you just put in one sentence and it makes the rest of the song, and you're like, okay, here's my song. It's crazy.
Yeah. And that scares me. It definitely scares me. And I think about like, oh shit, am I going to be out of a job one day? But the one thing I know for sure, like through and through, is that, the machines, they may be able to outthink us and perform, calculate the digits of pi better than us, but like they'll never be able to feel the way we feel.
No, 100%.
And that I know without a doubt. Like, and like I said a few minutes ago, music is what feelings sound like, and mixing is just enhancing those feelings. So we'll always be able to do that better than the machines.
Yeah, I'd hope so. Yeah.
When it really comes down to it, and that's still not fully appreciated by so many people. I think that the technical aspect still reigns supreme, and it's a lot more sexy to do a little YouTube video showing off some compression technique instead of somebody talking for 5 minutes about like, oh, close your eyes and like automate the song. Like that doesn't sound fun, but like that's really what it's about. We're like, so yeah, there's so much to it, but I'm fascinated that you're interested in this as much as you are. I didn't think the conversation was going to go this way today.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people not make assumptions about me, but I mean, we all do this to everyone. We look at someone and we just automatically are like, oh, like this person is probably going to be this way, or this person's probably going to act this way. And I think with me, I've always had that too, because even when I first started making music, when I was 14, I still remember, I had a lot of like male friends and they were all rappers. And I was like smoking weed, skipping class, thought I was so cool. So I started freestyling with them. And then after like a few months, I started becoming better than them. And I'm like, oh, like I actually have like a little talent here. So I actually started music with hip hop. And when I first started recording, like the very first time I ever recorded was one of my friends, Mike Kabongo, shout out to him. He is a basketball player and a rapper. He's like, hey, I'm going to the studio. You want to come? I was like, yeah, sure. And I got there and he's like, why don't you go in the booth and like do a hook? I was like, oh, I don't know like if I'm going to be good or not. He's like, just go and do it. And I did it. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. So I started off with hip hop first. So I was a rapper. And then I kind of transitioned into pop and R&B because I had a lot of people tell me like, you know, like, oh, you're a really good rapper, but it's going to be really hard, you know, as a white female to, you know, break into the rap game. So I kind of like took what they said and was like, okay, well, why don't I try doing more stereotypical like pop? And it does work. Like, I think I have a really good voice for pop and for like EDM and things like that. But originally, yeah, I started with hip hop. And when I tell people that, they're like, you rap? Like, they can't believe it. You know what I mean?
Of course. Like, it goes back to, you know, making assumptions and judging by appearance. But yeah, I'm glad you brought up the rap thing because I'm so curious about that. As you can imagine, I've been listening to your catalog extensively over the last week, like, you know, in preparation for today. And the rapping, I have so much to say about it, but the rapping thing is really one thing that definitely stands out to me in such a good way. And I remember the first session that we had together, you know, a year and a half ago. And I was like, I remember I went home and I told my wife, I was like, this artist that I met today, I was like, I was so impressed. Like the way that it felt like it came so naturally to you.
Yeah. And,
you know, for me, somebody who's been doing this 2 decades, I've worked with countless rappers. I've seen all walks of life, good, bad, you know, experience levels. But it's so rare to find somebody that that just has that knack, that rhythm, the timing, the cadence. Like, and I was just like, God damn, Dakota's got the whole package. Like,
thank
you. Yeah, I'm such a huge fan of your music. But like the way that you just throw those verses in there. But you don't even call yourself a rapper, but it's still, those are like hotter verses than most people that are quote unquote rapping. You know what I mean? The technical skills and the fundamentals are so there in so many ways. So
yeah,
it makes sense now hearing that you started out as a rapper and people are like, yeah, you're good at this. Keep doing this.
Yeah, I think that's what helped me a lot actually, was like starting when I was young and not having like a thing where like, oh, I want to be a rapper. That's my dream. So I'm going to keep doing it. I was just doing it for fun, right?
Yeah.
And I think practice makes perfect is a really good phrase because I just practiced all the time. Like I would just rap at home. I would just put on a beat and freestyle whenever I felt like it. And I just got better over time. And I think having that experience is what made me better later on. Like, whereas if I had never rapped before and I tried for the first time, I probably would not be as good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I
so
think
you did put the time in the practice.
Of course. Yeah.
Who were you listening to as a teenager? Like, who were some of your favorite MCs?
Oh my God, I had so many. I'm definitely more of like an East Coast girl. I'm like more like the lyrical, miracle, spiritual.
Okay, me too.
Yeah,
go on.
West Coast is great. Like they have amazing beats, and I love West Coast beats. But yeah, I'm definitely more lyrical. So I don't know, Black Star, like Talib Kweli stuff. Oh, so good.
That's my maybe top 3 favorite hip hop album of all time.
Oh, it's really good. Yeah, it's really good. Like Common's a great storyteller. Blue and Exile, they're really great duo. Yeah.
What's that one called? Under Heaven or
Below the Heavens?
Below the Heavens. Yeah, such a
really good album.
project. Yeah.
So lots of artists like that.
Oh, cool. Yeah, the lyrical people. Those 3
Storytellers.
examples are storytellers, but like there's a message in the music too. It's not like
it's not just like shooting and
rims,
killing and doing lines off her tits. Like,
yeah, absolutely. Man, I can remember memorizing Talib Kweli 16s and
he's crazy.
Mos Def bars back in the day, and the Black Star album. If CDs had ridges on them, we would have worn out the ridges on that CD. How much it got played, Jesus.
Yeah, and I think one of my all-time favorite, it might be a little cliche, is hip hop by Mos Def.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. It's such a good song.
Yes.
It just pretty much explains like the whole industry
Mm-hmm.
and where it's even evolved to now. It's exactly what he said.
Black on both sides. Yeah.
So good.
To this day, I'm still trying to replicate that feeling of that album, and I love the way he threw in like just a couple of beats with no lyrics on that album.
Yeah. This is a nice kind of interlude to have, you know. I
It
think
flows so nicely.
I think that's what we're kind of missing too in albums now is like, I mean, there are a few artists who do that, but having like interludes or sections in the album where you can just give your ears a break, just kind of listen to the beat and chill and then regroup and get ready for the next song. I mean, I don't really listen to any new albums like that.
I'm struggling to think of any that are doing that. I mean, things are so different now though, and
That's true.
everybody's trying to make a song like 2 minutes and 12 seconds, or the formula is different. You know, people are just putting, like Drake will put out a song that's 64 bars with no hook, and that's the song. I mean,
Yeah.
you didn't get that in the 2000s.
Well, people have a shorter attention span, right? Because of social media.
Yeah.
People just want like fast, like single. Like people don't even really sit and listen to a full album anymore.
I don't think they do.
Probably some people do, but a lot of people I know who aren't musicians, they just pick the best songs and then that's it.
The TikTok effect, where it's just snippets, it's just instant gratification, and I can just digest it quickly, and I can scroll to get to the next little piece.
Yeah. It's really changed.
It's super changed.
A lot of how the music is, yeah.
Yeah. But you know, I'm still listening to the 2000s myself and going back, and there's a handful of projects that still that are timeless for me, and I go back and I have so many thoughts about it. I'm enjoying it, but I'm also like, God damn, this song's 4.5 minutes. There's 3 16-bar verses.
Yeah, it's long.
The hook plays, and then at the end the hook plays twice, and the beat rides out. Like that was like the G Unit formula. Dr. Dre, Eminem, like that's, you know, there'd be 3 full 16s. Jay-Z for that matter, you know, like that was a standard back in the day. 3 full 16s in hooks. And
well, yeah, you had to kind of prove that you were like, you know, able to do it. And
it's what it was about. There was something to prove still.
Yeah.
It was like,
Now
who's got a hotter verse? Who's going third? The
Yeah.
anchor's going third because he's got the hotter verse on this song. It was about skills still.
Yeah.
It was about, you know, respect and passion for emceeing. I don't know if I see that as much anymore.
Yeah, it's definitely more rare. I think especially with like big artists, it's definitely more rare. But I mean, underground, there's a lot of fantastic artists, you know, that will probably never get any shine, but are amazing MCs or amazing singers, whatever. Even in Vancouver here, there's so many underground people going to all the shows that I've been to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Let's talk about shows a little bit. I mean, I've seen you, you know, I follow your Instagram, and looks like you've been doing some sets and things. How's that going? How's that feeling right now, like coming out of the pandemic and all that?
Yeah, I mean, it's been pretty great. I've only done, I think, a total of like 6 or 7 shows, and they've all been like 10-minute sets, so like 3 songs each set. So they haven't been super long, but it's been great. I mean, I love performing. I'm always nervous before I go on. I'm like, oh my God, look how many people are here. And then once I get on, I'm like natural. I'm just in my zone.
Sure.
And it's every performance I get better. Like the very first one I did, there was about 200 people there, which was a lot for me.
That's a lot of people, yeah.
And it was nervous. So I could even hear in my voice, like my vocal quality wasn't as good. And now compared to the last one I did like a few days ago, it's like, oh wow, I sound so much better. And doing like crowd work, you know, you kind of figure out, the more you do it, you figure out how to get the crowd engaged.
Right.
So definitely that's improved a lot.
That's a big part of it.
Yeah.
Not standing on stage staring at the ground.
No.
You know, but like engaging, body language, all these things.
And it's much harder, I think, for singers because with, especially for me, because I'm not like a classically trained singer. I'm not doing like soul. I'm playing like a back track, right? Like I have my vocals in the background. So I think it's easier for people to get kind of distracted if I don't have anything engaging. So I have to be even more engaging than, let's say, a rapper who's just like can stand there and spit bars. I have to actually dance or move around or do things to get the crowd engaged. So it's been an interesting experience, but I love it. Yeah, I'm doing another show on the 26th at Fortune Sound Club.
Have you done that venue before?
Yeah, I've done that venue twice before.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's great because each show, like, I get to meet new people. The last show I did at Cabana on Granville, I met this engineer slash DJ, and he's from Calgary. So he works at the Calgary Stampede.
Okay.
He did the festival here. I don't know what it's called. There's a festival on the weekend. I think it was the one where people destroyed a bunch of stuff, or I don't remember
I feel
what it's
like I
called.
should know this. I'm a little
Yeah,
ashamed,
like the
embarrassed right
baby
now.
was supposed to come or something. I don't know exactly, but like he's working for their DJing
Okay.
there, so it's kind of cool to like meet new people, and then you get more opportunities, right? Like that's part of what I was saying before is like if I just stay at home all the time, I'm never gonna actually be able to meet people to get
Oh, yeah.
opportunity to do things. So I'm trying to like put myself out there more and do more shows. But then again, after the show's done, I just go home right away.
Yeah, it's tough, right?
Yeah.
It's definitely, I mean, and it's everybody's, has different comfort levels and different, so some people that comes naturally to. Some people, I know people that just have some sort of endless energy bank, and they're just talking nonstop, and I'm exhausted, and they're like still meeting new people and going on
It's
and
called
on.
cocaine.
I want, yeah, like I want to go to bed, and it's like, no, I like one of my closest friends who I grew up making music with, was that way. I love him to death. We were polar opposites. We were Mos Def and Talib Kweli. Our flows were completely different. We had the two different styles. He's a Leo and I'm a Taurus, and he's just that like outgoing
Fiery.
Leo, like lion.
Yep.
And I'm like, chewing
Grounded.
grass, grounded in the background, waiting for, the right moment. But
That
like
can be the best mix
tentative.
sometimes, though.
It was a great mix for the two of us. Yeah. But he was definitely like the go-getter, and and still to this day, like doing his solo thing and just killing it, just like at all the festivals, performing like for a living now. He's making, doesn't have a day job. He's like music. He's made music his thing now, and I'm so
the
proud of
goal.
him. It's so
Yeah.
cool. But like, I could not do that. No way.
Yep.
That's not
Yep.
me. That's why I'm here in the chair.
Yep.
But both sides are required.
Yeah. Well, that's where I struggle too, right? I was telling you before is like I have kind of like I can be very extroverted and I'm great with meeting new people, but I do have a limit where my
Yeah.
battery runs out. I'm like, okay, I have to go. So that's been a struggle. I've been thinking about like if I performed at festivals, I think I would have no problem performing in front of like thousands of
Yeah.
people, so much energy on stage. But the problem is right after, I think I would just be done. And part of being an artist is you have to stay. Like you have to talk to other
really
artists.
do, yeah.
You have to meet new people or else you're not really going to get very far. Because people want to work with artists who are like friendly and, hang out and actually give their time and energy. So that's part of why I was leaning more towards the engineering side too.
110%. Yeah, the networking thing is
Oh, it's hard.
yeah. I mean, I've heard people say like 80-20, for the ratio of like music versus promotion and networking and meeting people, but it's like it's way above 50%. Wherever you want to throw that number out, it's so incredibly massive. And
Yeah.
I myself not good at it, and I also have a handful of people that I work closely with that I personally think are some of the most talented artists I know that also suck at it.
Yep.
And it's so tough because I'm like, I don't know how to help you, but like you need help. Like people need to hear your music.
Yeah.
You can't just be sitting on this gold mine, and we are like, I'm obviously not going to name names, but a handful of people that I know that I love dearly, and their music is tremendous, but just the skill set there is completely lacking of how to promote, how to put it out, network.
Most artists, right? It's
I think so. Yeah.
It's hard to be the creative and be the business manager and be the investor all in one, right? That's why a lot of people that make it, they have teams. They have a videographer, they have an engineer, and they're not charging each other. They're all working together to build it together.
That's what it is. Yeah.
And it's really hard to do that by yourself. That's why I think a lot of creative people that are extremely talented, they never really get any recognition because they're not business mindset, right?
Yes.
And it's the same with me. Like I'm terrible at marketing. I don't know how to market at all. So I try my best. Like I'll watch like a 1-2 video on YouTube, like, oh, how to promote your music video. But yeah, it's really hard. I think because I just want to focus on making the music. I don't want to focus on building a business. But if you want to make it a living, you have to think of it as a business.
You really do. Get your team together, and if you can get people that are willing to work for free, like that believe in you, that
Yeah.
are sort of like, you know, I'll invest in you because I believe in the potential outcome in the down the road. I mean,
Yeah, that's really rare though. That is like, especially if you're older. I feel like when the most of the people I know, like there's this one artist from Toronto. He now lives in LA. Oh, I forget his name, but he's a rapper. And he's like, I wouldn't say he's very big, but he's big enough that he can like live off his music now, which is already a dream and a goal. But he started in Scarborough with, you know, a couple of his friends. One of them wanted to be like a videographer and do music videos. One of them was a producer, and they just all started together not knowing how to do it. And they built up over the years, and now they're like all living in LA together, you know, making music.
yes.
So I'm like, that's kind of the goal, but it's hard as you get older, you know, because me being 26, just starting music 2 years ago, most of the people I meet have already been doing it for a long time. And it's hard to get people to really invest in you once they've already been doing music, because they've already met so many different artists. They already have their own way of mixing or their own type of genre. So it's a little more difficult, I would say, the older you get.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely difficult. I'm really curious about, you know, are you mixing your own music right now? Are you involved in that process, or who is your engineer, like for all the releases that are out on YouTube or Apple Music, you know, Spotify right now?
Yeah, so like I think the first 3 songs I have released, which are Paradise, Unconditional Love, and Mode, were all mixed by that gentleman in Toronto, the older man, Jeff.
Okay.
And then the newer ones I have were all mixed in Nova by Chris.
Oh, okay, nice. I haven't met Chris, but I've heard a lot about him. Yeah,
Yeah,
they sound really good.
He's a really good engineer for sure.
Yeah.
I think he's like the protege of Jamie, which I've heard is like one of the best engineers in Vancouver.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
For his genre, he's killing it.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Both of those guys, huge fans of their work.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, and talk to me about like how that goes down. Is that, are you involved in, are you sitting there with them? Or are you sort of like, songs done, you guys do your thing? Is there a stage where you're giving them a bunch of notes and following up? Like,
definitely. So the way I work, I did the same thing with you. When I come to my session, I'm prepared. I have the lyrics ready. I know how I want the song to sound. So let's say my session is from 8 to 11. I come at 7:50, and by 8 o'clock, I'm like, let's go. I want to record. Roughly for the songs I have out, it takes me about 2 hours to record the whole song. That includes like the main vocals, the ad libs, the harmonies, everything. And then after that, I normally have an hour or 2 left, and they start doing the rough mixing in front of me. Most of the time, I'm just kind of listening and vibing out, but there are some times where I'll hear something, I'll be like, oh, can you make that sound like that? Or, you know, I'm really big on also including the engineer. So even when I'm in the booth, I'll be like, hey, what do you think of this harmony? Do you think I should do this here?
nice. Yeah.
So even after the recording process, I'll go back and say to Chris, like, oh, do you think we should add this ad lib? And he'll be like, no, I think it's a little too crowded. Maybe you don't need it. So I try to be as involved as possible, but I don't know, obviously, like the technical aspects of it.
Okay. Yeah.
But I try to be like as much as possible. Yeah.
Because I'm hearing a lot of, I mean, the ad libs obviously on point. And I think that comes from your hip hop rapping background.
Definitely.
And ad libs they're such a funny thing, because they're such a simple thing, but they're actually so hard to do well.
Oh, for sure. I struggled a lot too when I was first rapping. Like, I can show you later some of my older hip hop stuff. I had to get a lot of advice from my friends, like my rapper friends, because I just didn't know how to do ad libs. I would just repeat the same word over and over. And they're like, no, you got to kind of think about it like, let's say one sentence, you're saying something, and then the ad lib has to either answer what you're saying, or you can't just keep repeating over and over.
It's commentary.
Exactly.
It's a running commentary on the verse a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, the ad libs I'm hearing are really on point. I'm hearing a lot of cool, stereo ping pong delays going on, but not too much. Like just the right amount where there's a space for them, and like you said a minute ago, not too crowded. So I can't remember the names of the songs, but I think it's probably Chris at Nova that's doing those, like the more recent ones you were saying.
Definitely.
So it's really tastefully done. I like it a lot.
But what's interesting now too is like, it's only been 2 years, but for example, the biggest song I have, Drama, which got, so I have a distribution deal. So they distribute all my music for me. And Drama was like the first big song I had. And that one got on a really big Spotify playlist. And that's what gained me. I had almost like 20,000 monthly listeners at one point. And even that song, I still listen to this day and I find like small things that I think I could have changed in it.
Yeah.
You know, so I feel like that process also never ends. Like even songs I have released in the moment, I was like, wow, this is a great song. I'll listen to it now and be like, oh, I could have added like a little ad lib here or a little harmony here, and it like never ends. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like a painting, you know, like an artist wants to do one more brush stroke. Oh, I got to add a tree there. This cloud's fucked up. I got to change, you know, but like eventually you got to just say enough is enough. And
at some point,
the song's done. And that in itself is an art. That in itself takes a lot of discipline and a lot of experience to be able to, you know, close the book on it. I definitely struggle with that with mixing. And, you know, even after I get really good feedback from clients that are, you know, using all kinds of adjectives and they're so happy. And I'm still like, I have this running commentary in my head where I'm like, oh, I want to do this. And like the song's done. They've paid me. It's approved. But it's hard. It's tough because, you know, it is creative and you want to keep adding things and this and that.
Yeah.
But that's how you grow. That's definitely how you get better, is just starting one thing and seeing it through to the end is really tough.
Yeah.
I know so many people with 50, 60 unreleased songs that are 70% done, you know, but like,
every artist, you know,
a lot of people
have
that. Yeah. I've got mixes that are solo stuff from 10 years ago that you know, not finished, but
you gotta drop it.
And I'm planning on actually putting a project out in the spring. It'll be my first solo project in a long time, but yeah, like just the process of finishing a thing is really important. It will teach you a lot as an artist.
Yeah, no,
and as
I
a
agree.
creative person.
Yeah, and I think for me, I started on the other end of it. So starting with hip hop, I always did too much. So I'd have like 50 ad libs and like 3 backtracks, and then I'd listen to it. I'd be like, this is terrible. Like this is too much. I got to take stuff out. So I started with too much, as I think every artist does, because you just have so many ideas you're like want to put in the song. And not all your ideas are good, you know? So you got to kind of pick and choose, right? And now it's kind of come to the opposite end, where now after I've done it, I'm like, oh, maybe I did a little bit I didn't do enough. So yeah, it's a hard balance to find, but I think it just comes with time and with practice, right? Like everything is practice. Yeah.
Knowing, like, trusting your intuition, knowing your, you know, like, catching yourself making mistakes, but like, oh, that didn't work last time. I'm doing it again. Stopping yourself.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
What do you find? I mean, I guess we've just been talking about that being a bit of a challenge, but what do you find like the most challenging part about making a record? Like, maybe not songwriting, because you said you can write a song in 20 minutes, but like from start to finish, is there a spot where you usually find that you're struggling? Maybe it's delivering the right take. Maybe it's, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I think as an artist, like I have days where I don't sound as good. So some days I'll book a studio session, I'll go in and I'll be like, oh, I don't really sound the best. So maybe I need some time to warm up. And I'll realize, like, for me personally, some artists are just ready to go, but I actually notice with myself, it takes me like a few hours to actually sound really good.
Oh, for sure.
So once I record one song, after that, that's when I'm hyped and I'm like, okay, I'm ready for another 2 hours. Yeah. But you know, my budget is only so much, so I can't really afford myself to do that. So I think that part is a little bit difficult. I have to most of the time like force myself to deliver really well in the short period of time that I have. And then I would say, honestly, the whole process is not really that difficult for me. Like the marketing, the business side, the afterwards is what's the most difficult. Yeah. Like I said, like writing, I'm super easy. I've written for other artists too. So the writing is super easy for me. I think maybe something else that used to be a problem and is now I'm kind of learning how to do it is harmonies. So when I first started, like I said, I'm not a trained singer. So I don't really know the scales. I don't really know about pitch. I just kind of sing based on how I hear it. And I didn't know how to do harmonies at all in the beginning. Yeah. And when I was in Toronto, Jeff, who was engineering me, he was awesome. He would always be like, sing this key, and he'd play it on the keyboard. So after doing that for like a year, I got used to him actually playing the key for me, and I started to just internalize it.
Oh, nice.
And like realize, what key sounds good. And so now I've gotten a little bit better. I can do most of my harmonies I can just do by myself. But that I still struggle a little bit with harmonies, yeah.
Yeah, harmonies are tough, and definitely if you're not classically trained or have some sort of music theory, you're just kind of shooting in the dark.
Yep.
Really, because that's what it is. I mean, music is a formula, It's timing, it's keys. I mean, it's literally called a key. What key is a song in? Because that unlocks the whole potential of what can and can't happen.
Yeah.
And harmonies are, they're definitely tough. So yeah, I can definitely appreciate that. What about like what's your favorite part of the song?
Probably listening to it after.
When the recording's done, when the mix is done,
as soon as the recording's done, like
Yeah.
I mean, of course, when the mix is done and like it's a full, complete song, it sounds so much different. But like once I've actually gotten the idea out of my head,
right?
Because for me, like when I'm writing a song, I already know in my head how it's gonna sound. So once I've translated it, it just I don't know. It's such like a releasing feeling. I feel like. For me, it's very emotional. Like I have this one song that I haven't released. It's called Vancouver Dreaming. And it's about a guy that I dated who lived in Vancouver while I lived in Toronto. And I remember after I wrote the song and as soon as I finished recording and stepped out and listened to it, I cried. Because I just felt like all the emotion I was feeling, I finally got it out into the song. And it felt like so relieving. So that's probably one of my favorite parts of it. And then also showing other people.
Yeah.
I think every artist has a little bit of like an ego. I think that's kind of what the drive is to be an artist, a tiny bit, right? Is you want people to appreciate and like listen to your product. So I love showing people my music, yeah.
Are you good at showing strangers? Or are we talking to like friends and coworkers?
I'll show anyone.
Yeah.
I have no shame at all.
Nice.
I'll sell tickets to a show on the street. I'll just bring like a speaker, play my music, be like, "This is my song. Come to my show."
Well, good for you. That's difficult. Definitely difficult. Stepping out of. I bet that's stepping out of your comfort zone a little bit, right?
A little bit, yeah. But that's where kind of my extrovert side comes in. Is like I am very extroverted, but just I can't go for long periods of time.
You can do it. You can. I mean, I think I can say the same for myself too. Like I can definitely switch into that character, but only for a limited amount of time.
Yeah.
I think of, it makes me think of when I used to perform and I would go on stage and for the most part, like I'm a pretty low key guy, Taurus.
Yeah.
But I would, I would like shadow box and like do like jump up and down like backstage before I go on.
Nice.
And like transform into this person that I knew I had to be, like
an Eminem moment.
Like but like go out on stage and not be the Leo, not the Taurus,
Yeah.
But
it's a persona, right?
Absolutely, switch into that character, switch in the persona, and I had my techniques and my routines that I would go through to get into it, and then similar to you, when the set was over, I was out of there.
Yeah, a little Irish goodbye.
Don't
say bye to no one, just peace. Yeah.
Not sticking around.
Well, you know what? That's kind of nice though that you had a persona, right? Like I think for me, the struggle has also been separating Dakota the person and Dakota North the artist. So I've had trouble figuring out like what the difference is, because for me, when I get on stage, I really just feel like it's just me singing. I don't feel like I'm a different person or I have like a different persona. I just feel like I'm just chilling and singing to people. And I think that's why the marketing has been so hard, because I know with music, it's like you're marketing a product, right? So I had to figure out how to market myself. So for me, doing that, it's like if I don't have a different persona, it's a lot harder, because we're always hypercritical of ourselves and we think a lot of negative things. So I think if I was able to separate the two, it might be a little bit easier for me, because I'd be like, oh, well, this is me, who I am as a person, but like, this is Dakota North. This is what she likes. This is what she looks like, So that's been kind of something tricky, I guess, also, is finding that where to draw the line between personal and artist.
Yeah. And like, how you want to be seen in
Totally,
the public. You know, what parts of my personal life do I really want to write songs about, and what parts am I going to make up stories about?
Yeah.
You know, and you know, an image and all these things. You know, so do you feel like you're on the right track with that? Like, is it going well?
Well, with like Dakota North as an artist, I honestly have not put a lot of thought into it because, like I said, like it just feels like just me. But I actually do have another like persona that I'm working on who's more of a hip hop artist, and her name's Cody Shug. She has blonde hair.
Okay.
And she raps. So I kind of started that journey with this Korean engineer here. His name is like Doomsday. And he produces for a lot of big artists in Korea and artists here. And he was originally the one because he liked my rap music. And he was like, well, if you want to do rap, I think you should have a different persona. You know, like Dakota North can be your pop and R&B, and then Cody Shug could be your rap.
Nice.
So we came up with the name together. And we came up with kind of an image. She's like, well, I think blonde hair would look good because I used to have blonde hair. And so we came up with this image and idea of Cody Shug, which is, I haven't really done much on it yet, but I still have the idea there. And it's actually really fun, like getting to dress up as a different person. My long blonde wig, it's great. Yeah,
it's funny you mentioned that, like, because it makes me think of another artist that I'm working with now who also, I wouldn't call it split personality, but has different characters that they play.
Yeah,
and it's a way for them to bring out different parts of their personality and really, you know, spotlight them. And I won't talk about him on the show now, but it's interesting because we are so complex as human beings. We are multi-dimensional, multi-level. We have different moods, different moments, different, you know, and if it's a shame to, you know, maybe waste them if just focusing on one thing, you know. Of course, people throw a history of tremendous success just being Jay-Z or just being Britney Spears or just, you know. But if you can find a way to highlight more than one of them, I mean, that's pretty cool.
Well, I think it's also good to have a different avenue, right? Like, even like think about Anderson .Paak. Before he was Anderson .Paak, he had a different stage name, and he was doing different type of music.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I don't remember what his stage name was, but he was already like making music videos and making music with a lot of Korean artists in LA because he's half Korean. And it just wasn't working out for him. Like, he just wasn't getting anywhere.
Yeah.
So he changed his name, changed his persona, and changed, like, kind of the style of music. He did more, like, live music. And now he's, like, one of the biggest artists in the world, right?
Yeah.
So I think it also kind of gives artists, like, space to pick an avenue, right? And also for me, I was told a lot by other engineers and producers and artists that, like, if I'm going to be releasing pop music, before I have a big fan base, I need to be consistent. Right. So I need my fans coming to me knowing, okay, I'm going to Dakota North for pop. That's what she does. That's what I like. So instead of like diversifying and being like, I do pop, I do rap, I do jazz, I do blues, you know, kind of just sticking to one genre. And that's why Cody Shug was invented, because it was like, well, I started with hip hop and I love hip hop, but I don't really want to include it in my Dakota North journey. So why don't I just make another persona? And I think that's what's so great about it, is it like lends you the ability to do multiple genres at once without compromising like one of your
totally.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally. No, I know what you mean. Absolutely. And you know, how disappointing is it when your you know, your favorite band puts an album out and like they've gone pop punk and you're like, what are you guys doing?
Yeah, I know,
like,
exactly.
Like, stick to what you're good at.
Right.
And you know, definitely, I can think of examples of that, people that I know, and you know, part of that is maybe learning about yourself, maturing, finding your foothold. But I know people that are really good at one thing, but they don't stick with it, and that you know, changing genres every 6 months, and it's like, damn it, just like, what about all the fans that liked your last project? Like, they're gone now. Like, I would be. I was a fan, like,
exactly.
You're doing something totally different now. Like, that indie pop thing was really working for you. What's going on?
Well, I think that's kind of the confusion a lot of artists have, I think, is like they don't take the time by themselves before releasing music, like the years that it takes to find your style. They do that while they're releasing music.
Yeah.
Right? So I think it's really important. Like, for me, I spent years just rapping before I even thought about recording. And even though I haven't chosen that as like my avenue of music, I still already know that I'm good at it. So if I ever want to, I can do it. Whereas like you were saying, like a lot of artists are like, one day they're like, I want to be an artist. So they get in the booth and for like 3 months they're doing pop, and then they're like, no, actually I want to try this.
Yeah.
And then they start releasing hip hop. And you can't really have a consistent fan base if you do that. I think that's only really afforded to artists who like Madonna or something, you know, have been in, you know, the public sphere for years and years and years. Like if she changed up and did hip hop, I'm sure a lot of her fans would be like, oh, that's awesome. Like, let me listen to that, because she's been consistent for so long, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's earned that.
Exactly. A little bit, right?
You kind of give her the pass at
Yeah.
that point.
Yeah.
A big, I think a huge piece of that is before you come to the studio, spending the time like you have all those years, you know, rapping and practicing, ironing out the kinks, figuring it out. Too many artists I find don't have a space at home where they can record, or even just like a basic setup at home.
Yeah, like little Scarlett Audio,
Fucking
something. Yeah.
USB snowball mic from Best Buy.
There
It's like
you go.
$99 to figure your shit out. And you know, I don't want to sound negative here, but I dealt with this for years when I was tracking regularly at 2-Track. You know, new artists would come in all the time and just really have no clue. And I felt bad because it's like we weren't the most expensive studio in the world, but we also weren't cheap.
Yeah.
And I'm like, in my head, like, what are you doing here? Like, obviously I wouldn't say this, but
course,
I mean, from time to time I did. There were a few people that I had to sit down and I literally had to have a real heart to heart with them just because I felt so compelled.
Yeah.
But it was like for a lot of the time it was like, this person's just wasting their time here. Like they have no clue what they're doing. You've kind of, you know, I'm trying to think of a good analogy here, but it's like you've gotten into a car with no clue of how
to drive,
where the steering wheel even is,
Yeah.
for God's sakes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that level of mystery about everything. And it doesn't take much. I mean, if you're considering being an artist, like you should have a laptop already. You should have a computer. You should have some way, because you're going to need to promote your shit once it's out. So like get a laptop and, you know, a Scarlett interface, or even something really simple. You could, like I said a minute ago, like a USB mic, not so that you can release your music with that, but so that you can get in the routine of practicing recording yourself and hearing it back.
And hearing it. Yeah, that's super important. I think a lot of people never really hear what their voice sounds like. So even when I first recorded, I was like, oh, that's what I sound like.
Right.
And then you kind of like get used to it and you can figure out what you want to sound like based on that, right?
Totally. Yeah. And, you know, being on the mic is really different than singing in the shower or in the car.
Yeah. That's why they call it a studio performance, because it's like there's studio artists, right?
Yeah.
And then there's artists who perform live that are really good. Like, for example, the group The Internet. Like their recorded sessions sound so good, like amazing. One of my favorite albums, you know, by The Internet is by The Internet. And then when they perform live, like the singer sounds totally different, right? So like there are people who are better at performing, doing recordings than there are doing live, and vice versa, right? So you need to be able to kind of figure out also like what are you the best at, what are you better at, kind of.
Getting into being a good performing artist takes as much time, if not longer, than being the studio artist. But I mean, going back to the session thing and recording, it would definitely frustrate me. The barrier for entry nowadays, like I've said so many times, is so low.
I know.
And so just like get yourself in the habit of, you know, recording at home, learning that you need to take a breath from time to time. How it sounds in your head is different than how it's going to come across recorded onto the mic and into Pro Tools.
Yeah.
And then learn like what that sounds like. Yeah. Iron out the kinks, spend the time doing your demos, figuring yourself out. I don't know, like when I think back when I started and my friends and I started, and we were brand spanking new with our cracked software off of LimeWire, like, you know, we wouldn't have dared imagine booking a studio session. Like
Yeah.
that was not even like in the realm of possibility. Like
Yeah,
we
100%.
knew we weren't ready to go into a studio.
Mm-hmm.
We were like, but the new generation, it's like, I don't know, where they're getting these ideas from that it's easy.
I think for me, part of it is this whole idea of, everyone is valued, everyone has value, everyone has potential. And it's just not true. Like, there are people who are better at making music than others. And I think the problem is there's so many pick-me's and yes men, right? Like, even your friends, they won't sit you down and be like, bro, this sucks. Like, you need to have better flow. You need to write better lyrics. They'll be like, this is great. This is sick.
It slaps, bro.
Right? And there's like nobody that's willing to tell people to their face, like, this is horrible. And that's what people need. It's unfortunate, but even I've had that. Like, I've had people, even to this day, like, listen to my music and I can tell they don't like it. And I'm like, you know what? Well, that's fine. It's not for you, right? But you need that. You need people to tell you, like, I don't really like this. This is not good, in order for you to take it personally and then want to become better.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you always have people who are like, wow, this is great, you're going to think you're the shit. And then when you actually meet, real engineers or real artists, and they're not going to fuck with you, you're going to take it personal.
Yeah.
Be like, well, everyone else likes my music. It's something wrong with them.
Yeah.
No, it's something wrong with you. Yeah.
Never going to accept the blame.
Yeah, that's the problem. There's nobody taking responsibility. Everyone has a victim mentality, so you can't really tell anyone.
Yeah.
There's this joke. It's like, it's this meme of a guy holding a sign. It's like, you need to tell your rapper friends that they suck. Like, you can't be like 50, 60 and like still rapping and nobody's told you, like, bro, you need to try a different job. Like, do
Maybe
something
not
else.
the career path for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, and like I said, I did a couple of times where it was just too much. It was too much, and no one else was going to tell them I was. I ended sessions early and sent people home. And some people might think that that's wrong and like, oh, everyone deserves a chance to go to the studio and be creative. I don't think they do. I think that you deserve a chance to be creative, but you've got to respect the studio still at the same time.
Of course, yeah.
And people weren't respecting the studio. They weren't respecting my time, and it was just a circus. It was just it was productive. There'd be people that I would see month after month not making any progress as well. I had to have that conversation too. And in the most coming from a place of love type of way as I possibly could.
Of course, because that's where it does come from. And I think a lot of people think in the music industry, like, you are not allowed to be kind of like very affirmative and strong about what you think about people's music, right? But even like, look at another industry like modeling. Think about how hard they are on those girls. They're like, oh, you weigh 95 pounds, you're too fat, you need to lose 5 pounds, right? Like, apply that to music. Like, apply that to
That's
any
a really
industry,
good
right?
example, yeah.
It's like, not everyone is going to be great, and you need to let people know so they can make a decision about where they want to go, with their life and their future. And I think the problem with music is that a lot of people do have potential. Even if they're not good now, they do have potential to be good artists. But the problem is, it's like the community is so about, everyone deserves a chance, and anyone can make music, anyone can be a good artist, and it's just not true.
It's not true.
Yeah.
It's not.
It's like any other industry. If you want to be a business owner, you're going to have some people tell you your product is shit.
Yeah.
Like, it's just how it is.
No, absolutely. I really like the modeling analogy. I can relate because my sister was an international model for better part of 10 years, and heard a lot of stories from her about that world. And it's tough. It's brutal, like brutal. And I if I can be in that position to change the course of someone's life for the better by telling them what I truly feel, I felt like I was doing those people a favor. I did. I really did, because I didn't think anyone else was going to tell them that. No one up to that point sure as shit had.
Definitely not. Yeah.
And I care too much. I care too much. I don't do this for the money. I don't do any of this for the money. I would have chosen a different career path if I wanted to be wealthy. I do this because I love it. I do music because I'm passionate about it, because it means something to me, because I see the magic of it when it's done well, and when it can give you goosebumps, and I'm trying to capture that. I'm trying to make more of that. I'm trying to bring that out of the people that I work with.
Yeah, and goosebumps are actually really rare. It very rarely happens where it's not like an external stimulant, like a cold breeze. It's very rare that people naturally just get goosebumps, and music is one of the things that does that, right? Yeah.
It's a pretty special thing when it happens. And it happens, and then your brain catches up a few seconds later. You're like, whoa, what's going on?
Yeah.
Like, comes out of nowhere. Like, you don't even know that it's happening. Some mysterious thing is there. And when I'm working on a mix and I get the goosebumps, I know I'm doing something right.
Exactly.
I'll do like a save as, Shift Command S, and just like stop, go for a walk. It's like, I've got something going here. I don't want to undo that magic,
right?
By
well, and you
pushing
need
it
a break
far.
too, right? A lot of engineers I've been learning is like you just get tired, so you can't. It's hard to sit down and mix for like 4 hours straight. Like I've heard that the best mixing happens within the first 2 hours. I mean, obviously, probably it depends on each engineer, but the best like mix that you're gonna get, not maybe the best, but the best basic mix you're gonna get is within the first 2 hours.
Yeah.
And normally, if you sit down for longer than that, sometimes your ears get tired, and you maybe add things you don't need.
Definitely
stuff like
guilty
that.
of losing perspective for sure. Listening too loud. I think I know what you mean though by the first 2 hours. Like, you're getting the big brush strokes out of the way, like the big moves, the big EQ moves, just the levels, like volume, like faders, like just the basic stuff out of the way, and getting the balance in the feel. Yeah, for sure. In the first 2 hours. And I definitely have like a fear of, working past ear fatigue and having, have I overdone this? Have I overcooked it? Added too much sriracha onto this?
I have a question. This is really random. When you're saving tracks, what do you save them as? Like, you save them as the title, I guess, because you're mixing, but you save them as the title that the artist gave to you, correct? Mm-hmm. See, when I'm producing, I guess it's different because I'm actually just making a beat.
Yeah.
I have like the weirdest method to do it. Like, I will just literally Control S to save, and then I'll just type in things I see around the room that remind me of the song.
Okay.
So like I'll be mixing like a song that kind of is like a little more slow and like flows really nice, and I'll just write water glass.
Yeah.
Like
nice.
it's so, yeah, I have like the weirdest method. Or the last beat I made, I saved it as Frosted Tips because it just reminded me of like an artist who had frosted tips who would sing on it. It's so
I do the same thing
Yeah.
with when I do make beats, which is few and far between, but I've got a catalog of beats people don't know about, and I'll do the same thing. It's like, what's in the room, what's on TV on mute at that time.
Yeah. To remind you of the
season
day.
2. I had a beat called Season 2 because I had a show on and I was watching Season 2 of that show, and
Love it.
I was like, okay, or whatever it might be, just like a feeling, a thought or something. And yeah, later on we'll think up a better title.
Yeah. Sometimes I just leave it. I send it to an artist.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, I really like Frosted Tips." I was like, "Cool,
Great,
it's yours."
let's go. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's good though, because it prevents you from having a whole folder of Untitled 1, Untitled 2,
Oh, that's the
Untitled
worst.
3. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't like that. Like track 1, track 2, track 3.
Naming things gives it a place in your heart. It gives it a place, like you'll remember it. I name all kinds of shit. I name my house plants. You know what I mean?
There you
Like,
go.
I name a lot of different. I have pieces of clothing with names.
Yeah.
That mean something to me, and it's a way of like remembering it a little bit better. If I go like I open up my hard drive and I'm digging through things, and that name, let me open that up and work on it tonight instead of Untitled 49.
Yeah, it totally makes you like nostalgic a little bit.
Yeah.
And I've also learned like from producing, because my ex actually in Toronto was a producer, and that's how I started learning. And I use FL, and I always save my beats with a name, with the BPM and the key.
Oh, perfect.
And I've learned, because I bought a lot of beats off BeatStars, like a lot of the beats of the songs I have released, I've bought off BeatStars. And it's really frustrating when I buy them and I buy the stems and they don't include the key. Obviously, like when I bring it to the studio, the engineer can find out. But
Yeah.
for me, while I'm writing the song, you know, if I don't know the key beforehand, it would just be so much easier. You know what I mean? Because then I could like at least figure out what kind of harmonies I want to do. Or when I go to the studio, I could just be like, oh, it's an A minor, you know,
Yeah.
automatically.
Oh, that's got to be frustrating for sure. And you would hope that that would just be standard, that producers would put that in the title, 135 A minor, like done. you know, without even thinking about it. But if you don't know about it, what is it called? Song Key Finder is a free one. That's the one I've been using for years.
Oh, okay, great.
And you just throw your MP3 into it. It's 99% of the time it's right.
Okay, perfect. That's
Finder.
awesome. Yeah.
It's free.
Because I've had so many problems where I bring a beat and they're like, well, what's the key? And they'd spend like 20 minutes just trying to find the key on the keyboard. And I'm like, that's wasting my time.
No.
Just want to record.
No. That's amateur. There's ways. There's websites, free websites. So, Song Key Finder is huge.
Yeah.
That helps me a lot. But yeah, get back to like labeling things. You know, definitely those people on BeatStars. You would hope that would be the standard. I haven't run into that too much, luckily. Or if I do, like even local people that are just a text away that I can ask, they're still already like giving me the key in BPM. So
that's good. Yeah. I think people appreciate it.
Yeah, it's a little thing, but it definitely like huge time saver, right?
Oh,
and
yeah.
if the artist is there on the clock and like you're messing up the vibe, man, they just want to get in the booth.
Oh, yeah. And that's another thing too, is like for me, my studio etiquette is I'm all about business, right? And I just never really, I can't seem to understand the artists that come to the studio and spend an hour just vibing and like smoking and talking. I mean, that's definitely, it's just like their way of creating, which fair enough, like you do you. But for me, I just can't ever see myself sitting there paying for an hour just to talk, right? I just never, that was something I never understood. Like, why can't you finish the song before you come, you know?
Oh, Jesus Christ. You mean you're preaching to the choir here? Like,
it's wasting your time too, right?
Pull
like
my hair out the amount of times. I can't believe I still have hair, you know, like the amount of times that happened. And I was just, you know, it's wrong on so many levels, but I'm just sitting there like, I'm on Instagram right now and they're like, the beat's playing, but like more than an hour sometimes.
I know.
2 hours. Come to the sometimes people will come to the studio with no plan, no clue of what they were doing. Like, I'm booking a session tonight. No beat. Let's go on YouTube. What? You don't have the beat picked out? No, let's go browse YouTube. This is costing you this much per hour to browse YouTube right now. You realize that? I guess so. I don't know, but it comes down to like professionalism, etiquette, respect. A lot of these things that are common sense that aren't very common, unfortunately. And it's but I saw that so much.
Well, and it's good, like you're the type of engineer where you're doing it because you love it, and I'm sure most engineers are doing it because they love it. But at the same time, you are like a business, right? So I've gone to the studio with some friends who will sit there for 2 hours and the engineer's just chilling and talking. And I'm like, well, this guy knows what he's doing. Like, he knows that he's just racking up the bills so he can get more money for doing less work, which, you know, if fair enough, you do you, it's your business. But like, I really respect engineers who are like, you know, like, bro, you're wasting your time. Let's get going. They're kind of on you about it. But yeah, a lot of engineers I've met are not like that. They're just like, they're fine with just chilling, which, you know, make your money. It's fine.
No, and to each their own. I personally, there was a point where I wouldn't tolerate it anymore. And if I had new clients, I'd give them like a little checklist. It was in an email, but, you know, please arrive 10 minutes prior to your session. Please have your beat picked out. Yeah. If you can, please have lyrics written and memorized if possible. I mean, but again, it goes back to like not having a studio at home and not understanding how this shit's not actually that easy. You're not just going to show up, get in front of the mic and be Travis Scott. Yeah. You're not.
And it's not respectful to the engineer, to be honest. Like, that was another thing I saw was an interview with Boy Wonder, and I think it was Boy Wonder, but he was talking about, you you know, how a lot of artists don't really respect the engineers a lot of the time. So they just come and they think like they're the center of attention, right? Because they're paying, so they can do whatever they want. They can waste your time. They can waste their own time. You know, they can say whatever to you, like, oh, like you're mixing this like shit, or just like not be kind to you. And it happens more often than you would think, right? People just don't respect the time of the engineer.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the thing, is like engineers wanting to not be in the spotlight. So I think a lot of artists, their ego kind of takes over, and they're like, oh, well, you're not even the one like performing. You're not going to be the one on stage doing it. So why should I show you the same respect? And that's not cool. I don't think that's cool at all.
Oh,
but I've
no.
seen it happen. Like, they just don't respect your time.
Yeah, I never got like insulted personally, but I did, like, the time wasting thing was just out of control, and the lack of professionalism,
Which is kind of an insult. I mean, in my opinion,
Yeah.
it's kind of an insult. That's why I always show up and I'm ready to go, because I don't want to go there to waste your time. Like, if you are serious and you love music, then you want to be making music, right? That's what you're getting paid to do.
hopefully.
Yeah. I mean,
You know, and I haven't had a chance to talk to other friends about this who work on, you know, rock and country and different things like that, for example, where it's very much about playing an instrument, not just stealing a YouTube MP3 and throw the autotune on.
yeah.
But I bet you it's different.
Oh, yeah.
I would bet that it's different, that because it is so easy to just make a rap song or an R&B song or a trap song, that attitude has just become commonplace.
Yeah.
I'm just going to show up and we'll get a YouTube beat and whatever. Whereas if you're in a band and you guys have been rehearsing.
Yeah.
There's that word, rehearsing. What does that mean? Practicing your guitar, playing your bass, figuring out your drum patterns and the lead singer, and everyone's like dialed in. We're locked in. We've got this song written. We know, like, we've polished it. It's edited. We know, like, where the bridge is going to go.
Yeah.
Now we're going to record it.
It's also much more expensive to record live music. Bands, I know, have to pay significantly more an hour because it's a lot more work. You have a lot more instruments to record. And it's a live recording, which I'm sure, I don't know personally, but I'm sure mixing that is completely different than, you know, a track with already pre-made beats and stuff like that, right?
Right.
So it's a lot more expensive. So I think they kind of respect it a little bit more because they know how much work goes into it. It's not just showing up with a beat and being like, yo, what up?
No,
They're
I think you're
they have
definitely
to
right
play.
about that. It's a different culture.
Yeah,
It's definitely a
100%.
different
That's why I
culture.
love country.
Yeah.
I love country music, by the way. My dad is total, like, country guy, super Canadian. Oh, yeah, bud, what's going on, buddy? You know, like, super Canadian. And I grew up listening to country with him, and I always, like, respected and loved country. So, and I've seen live performances for country, and it's so much different than all the hip hop and even the music I do. It's really different. Yeah.
Have you thought about doing country, or would that be a third character
so
you'd have to
hard.
play?
I don't know if I could be a country singer. I think I'd have to do vocal training for it because it's actually really hard to sing country. I think a lot of people hate on country. They're like, oh, country's like my least favorite genre. I'm like, do you realize how hard it is to actually sing country music? The way, like, the runs that they do and the way that their voice is, it's really hard. It's hard. I've tried to do it in karaoke, and even then it's like, it's a challenge. So if I did, I'd have to do some vocal training for sure for that.
Yeah. No, country's not my preferred genre, but there's definitely things I respect about it. The storytelling elements, for example, the imagery of the lyrics.
Yep.
I like, man, you can really be at that barbecue when someone's singing about it, you know, like the details and
I'm like an old country girl. I don't really listen to a lot of new country, but there's this one, let me find the name of the artist. There's this one song called Digging Up Bones. And it's just as old country as you can imagine. The title to be, it's by Randy Travis, called Digging Up Bones. And it's one of my favorite songs. It was released in 1986.
Okay, yeah.
And it's so good. Like, the storytelling is amazing.
Yeah.
And I love old country. I don't know. It just feels like home.
That's awesome. Yeah, nostalgic.
Very.
Definitely countries. There's a culture of respect and respecting the session, the engineer, I sometimes just go and listen to country because I like how well their shit's recorded and mixed.
Yeah.
Which I'm finding harder and harder to find nowadays in modern hip hop. And I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but really disappointed lately with so much stuff that I'm hearing that is just sounds super rushed or amateur or I don't know, bad. But
Yeah.
in a lot of hip hop lately, and even some like R&B, but country, I think, is country and rock. There's still like, you know, like you were saying, the bands have to, you know, pay more. There's a different level of like understanding how much goes into it, how to set up.
Yeah.
Miking a drum kit is like 10 to 15 mics just on the drum, for example. So like everyone there understands that like we're invested in this to a certain degree.
It's a group thing, right? And it includes the engineer. Whereas I think as solo artists or even people who are a double act who are just recording over a beat, even myself, it's a lot more like a centralist thing where it's like I am the star. So this is, I'm spending the money by myself, so I'm going to do it how I want it. Whereas when you're in a band, it's a group effort. So there's more ideas, more people who have opinions. So you have to kind of be more easy to work with and basically. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. Who do you want to collaborate with? Anybody locally that you'd like to collaborate with, or who is your dream collaboration?
I love Manila Gray. Yeah, I think they're really good artists. I mean, again, it's kind of the genre that everyone's doing, like, but they do it really well, I think. They're kind of a standout artist, I think, in Vancouver in terms of that. There's a girl named, I don't know her full name. It's Michaela Welks or I don't remember, but her name's like Mickey, and she's an R&B artist from Vancouver. She's really, really good as well. Like more classic R&B sounding voice, which I really like. So locally, those would be like the two big artists that I like. Other than that, I think like there's obviously some stars that I would love to work with. Like I think me and Doja Cat could do something really cool.
I could see
I think with the type of writing I have and the style I have, obviously she's much more refined and she has like a lot more professional mixing and recording scenarios. But I think like with the right guidance, I could definitely be on a level like that. Not to toot my own horn, but I think like someone who does kind of both of the hip hop and the pop, which I think Doja Cat does really well. She has a good balance between that.
Yes. And
then another thing is EDM. I started making a lot of EDM tracks, and I notice I've got, people have told me this before, that my tone is really, really good for EDM. So I've done some songs recently that I haven't released on some like Chainsmoker type beats.
Oh, nice.
And they're so sick.
Yeah.
It sounds really good. I could totally see myself like at a festival with a big DJ with like flames and like just jumping and like it would be so fun. Yeah.
That would be really cool.
Yeah.
You're definitely diverse. Definitely. No doubt about that. The EDM thing, they have there's definitely like a vocal sound to EDM in the same way that there's a vocal sound to house music. Have you ever noticed that about house music? Yeah,
they have a lot of this similar.
Like it sounds like there's one chick singing on every house record ever.
Yeah,
have you noticed that?
It's the same with EDM. It just sounds like the same person over and over. Yeah, I know.
But I think the word that you use, tone, is really accurate because it's like, we're not gonna get just any old singer for this. It needs to be right for this genre, that specifically has a feeling and a tone. And
I think like a lot of singers who aren't in the EDM genre, so doing pop and R&B, I feel like they don't really, because maybe they've never done it, but they don't really understand that as much. Like I've told some other singers, like, I've been told my voice is really good for EDM, and they were kind of like, well, I feel like anyone can just sing EDM. And I was trying to explain it, but it's really hard to explain. But it is like a certain tone that you have to have with your voice, right? Like I don't know if Ariana Grande, for example, would sound great on an EDM track. If they remixed it a bit, but just doing like a straight up track, I feel like her vocals are just not fitting in that category, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, like absolutely. That, I'm with you on that. Okay, so I'm gonna cheat here because I have to find one of your songs. I forgot the name of it. If I sang you the hook, you'd probably know it.
Yeah, what's the hook?
Get away from here.
Get away from here. Yeah.
Is that what it's called?
All right. Here we go.
Yes, okay. Smash hit.
Toronto.
That's my favorite record of yours right now.
Yeah, that song's really good too. It's so underrated. Like everyone I show my music, they don't really say much about it, but it's low key. It's my favorite song.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, every time I put that on, I'm like, yeah, this is the one you show to the labels. Like, this is ticking off all the boxes. That hook is so catchy. How did that record happen?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so I have like a specific story for that. So this was a record I made right before I left Toronto. It was like the last record I made there. And I wrote that song because of COVID. So basically, during COVID in Toronto, it was terrible for the first 2 years. Nothing was open. We had no dine-in. Like, you couldn't even do retail shopping. They'd only let 2 people at a time in the store. And I was just feeling really like depressed, and I was just going to work every single day. I had to wear a mask for like 10 hours a day, and then I just go right home after. And I was like, fuck, I gotta get out of here. So I reached out to my sister who lives in Vancouver, and I was like, hey, I'm thinking about coming to live with you. So I was like, well, even if I move here and there's restrictions, like at least I can, look at the mountains and go swimming in the ocean and see whales. Like, that's so cool. So I wrote this song about leaving Toronto. I was like, I just got to get away from here. Let's just get away.
Yeah.
Gotta get away. Yeah, so that's basically where it came from. And at the time, I was dating my ex, who, I won't say his name, but he was convicted of a crime, let's just say, and he couldn't leave the province. And so it was kind of like mixing a little bit of the lyrics in with that, where it's like, generated all my revenue just to get away from here, and I'll take you too. So it's kind of like, oh, if I have enough money, you can just come with me and run away with me to Vancouver, right? So that's basically like where the song came from.
Cool.
And interesting with that song is I actually wrote the hook originally for a different beat. And when I went to the studio, what I do basically is I'll buy like 5 beats at a time in a pack. And then I'll like pick which one I like and I'll write. And then when I went to the studio, the engineer I worked with, who was Jeff, the older man's son, they worked together. So his son was also an engineer. He was like, I don't really know. Like the hook doesn't really feel like it fits on here. Do you have any other beats? So I played him that beat, and he's like, why don't you try it with this one? And originally I only had the hook written. And after I wrote the whole song, I went in, and on the first take, I was like, oh wow, this is perfect. Like, this sounds exactly what I wanted it to sound like. And that's how it happened.
Just fell into place. Hey, yeah, it was meant to be.
It was really meant to be. I was only in the studio for 2 hours for that whole song.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's what I get that feeling when I hear that too. Like, it's just all these elements are working so nicely together.
Yeah.
So yeah, and coming from a place of a real life experience as well. Like, I think people as humans, we can subconsciously somehow feel that when a song is coming from a certain place of realness about a true experience, or like, this is happening in my life right now, and as opposed to, made up drama or made up whatever, which there's a place for that type of music as well. But anyhow, I connected with it. I really liked it.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, all of my songs are actually based on true things mostly. Yeah. And my kind of the way I write songs is I'll just start with a word or a feeling. So like, I'll sit down, I'll listen to a beat. Oh, I like this beat. What do I feel when I listen to this beat? Like, oh, it's like very soulful. It makes me think about, my family or something like that. And I'll just put family. And then I'll kind of start writing from the word family. And that's how kind of I write my songs. And that's how I did Away From Here. I was like, I just got to get away. And I just wrote that one line. Yeah. And then I just wrote the whole song based on that. So it's always comes for me from a place of like what I'm feeling. At least, not the whole song maybe, but at least most of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you're writing, is it on an iPhone? Are you writing with pen and paper? Is it in your head? How do you write?
iPhone, yeah. On my notes. I have so many, like just, oh my God, I still have like songs I wrote from 2015, like on the very bottom of my phone. Yeah.
Make sure you get your iCloud backup turned on.
Oh, definitely. I learned the hard way.
Don't want to lose your notes.
Learned the hard way, yeah.
Some gems in there, I bet. I know for me, I've got song titles and mixed notes, and I use the Notes app all the time for so many things. It's great.
Well, now that I have a new Mac, I've started typing on my Mac, so writing notes on my Mac, which I never had before. So it's, I always use the notes. I used to write pen and paper when I was young, like 14, 15 in high school. So I do still have these old books of just like all these writtens that I have.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, definitely once I got an iPhone, I was like, I don't need a pen and paper.
Yeah, plus
upgrade.
Totally. Plus the paper, like you hear it crinkling on the mic if you're holding an old piece of. I remember that, at least for me, when I first started recording. I was like, a nail a take, and then I could hear the paper crinkling. Like, fuck.
Well, I was lucky enough that when I started recording, it was only a few years ago. So I didn't even have the paper at that time. So yeah. But I'm actually really good at memorizing. That's another skill I have. I think that's why I'm a good writer too, is like from the time I was like age 4, I could memorize movie scripts. So like I'd watch Austin. My dad showed me Austin Powers when I was 4, which my mom was very upset
You
about.
were 4? Nice.
Yeah. So I used to sit in McDonald's and like be like, I'm a sexy bitch, daddy, and like do all the lines from Austin Powers. And even if you ask my mom, she'll tell you, she's like, yeah, you would always recite all the movie lines and everything like that. And I've always kind of had that skill. So it's funny because I can't really remember other things, but I can really remember like scripts or lines.
Well, you have a way with words, clearly, you know. That's so good to hear that, because that was definitely a thing I tried to reinforce a lot, was if possible to memorize lyrics. You know, a lot of people will still have the phone behind the, you know, in front or however you're facing, you know, holding the phone on the mic while they're recording.
Yeah.
But what I found when I was recording back in the day was that I got a lot more feeling out of the take when I wasn't reading off of the screen.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how many times, being the engineer at 2-Track, in the chair, artist is in the booth, and I would tell them after the take, I would say, are you reading off your phone? And they'd be like, yeah, how'd you know? I'd be like, I can hear it.
Yeah.
I can hear you. I can hear the hesitation.
Sounds like you're reading. Yeah.
It literally sounds like you're reading.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like you're performing. The more that you can, you know, close your eyes and get into the music, you know, just deliver that performance, people are going to connect with that a lot more.
For sure. Yeah.
You don't want to sound rigid. You don't want to sound like you're reading. So that's huge. And for anybody listening, if you're recording yourself or coming up, I mean, that may be one of the biggest takeaways for me as a developing artist, was when I stopped reading off of paper and phone and memorized my shit. My takes got so much better.
Yeah.
I used to go on runs. I'd go jogging and I'd recite my verses.
Smart.
While rapping and jogging, because I would, you know, for multiple reasons, to drill it into my brain, but also in preparation for shows.
Yeah, no, I do that at the gym. Like before my shows, I'll go to the gym on the bike and I'll just sit on the bike and sing my song out loud while I'm on the bike. Yeah.
That's so
and it helps
smart.
a lot with breath work.
So smart for your stamina. Yeah, breath work.
That's another thing is like I always appreciate about hip hop was like the professional MCs. They have amazing breath control. You would think a lot of people who are not into music, who just listen, would think like, oh, it's probably a lot harder to sing and perform. And it definitely is, especially if you're like dancing, have heavy choreo. But rapping is actually really hard to do live, especially if you're a rapper like Jay-Z, who is just like bars, right? You have no break. And their breath control is insane. And they smoke so much weed. I'm like, how are you able to control your breath and smoke like 10 joints? It's just insane.
Yeah, the leaving, we actually just, I've talked about this a couple of times recently, about that exact thing you just said about leaving breaks and pacing yourself. And it's so important. It's so important. And if you can't do it on the mic, how the hell are you going to do it on stage too?
Yeah.
So that's another thing you've got to consider when you're writing this song, is like eventually you're going to want to perform this one day, right? So if you're struggling to finish a verse standing, how the fuck are you going to perform, jump around, wave at people do it? Like, forget it. A, you need to rewrite this verse with better pacing, or B, like, stop smoking and get on the treadmill.
Yeah, I mean, like, even for me performing, I've realized over the last performances, the first one I did, like I said, my vocals weren't that great, and watching the video back, I can see where you could hear I was out of breath. I was like, like screaming my last breath, and I realized, like, the last performance I did, I took breaks. So I would only do the ad-libs in one section of the song. That way I could have a few seconds to just breathe. When I felt I was getting out of breath, I'd just take a second and dance and just let the track play a little bit. So it's about, even if the track is really full, it's about just finding times in the performance to just maybe do something else to keep the crowd engaged, right? And that's why it's so good to have backup dancers or have your homies on stage while you're performing, because they provide something for the audience to pay attention to, so you can take a break.
Oh yeah.
And not have to just keep
It's
going.
all choreographed for a reason. Those people,
Yeah.
on stage, absolutely. Like, backing tracks are one thing, but if you can have someone else on stage, do your ad libs or have a backup dancer. Anything you can just to make the audience, make them believe what you're doing, make the performance believable without losing their attention.
Yeah, even my last show, I had just my friends, my three friends come up on stage, and two of them were just like dancing. There was no choreography, but they were both on either side, just vibing out.
Yep.
And that was the first time I had people on stage with me. And after the show, I had people come up and be like, I loved your backup dancers. What a great touch. And I was like, my backup dancers, they're just my homies. Like, they're not even good dancers. But I realized even just having other people on stage is so much more engaging with the crowd.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, well, now I need backup dancers, obviously.
Yeah. Is that something that you're going to source out, or will you just get friends to do it again, do you think?
Well, it's funny because I was thinking for my next show, I was actually looking into it. I asked one of my friends, Ryan Morissette. He's a professional dancer and artist as well. I have a song with him that's unreleased. And I asked him, I was like, hey, do you have any friends, that would maybe consider doing a backup dancing show for me? It's only a 10-minute set. Here's my budget. He's like, yeah, I'll get you in contact. So he actually got me in contact with his friend. And I've never hired dancers before. I've never been a dancer. I don't really know what the rates are and what's fair.
Yeah.
And my motto has always been, I always ask people their rates first. So even when I first came here, I asked Nova, hey, what are your rates? And if you tell me your rates, I will always respect it. And if I can't afford it, I'll just be like, hey, I totally respect that. Right now I can't afford it, but when I can, I will 100% come back, right? And that's kind of what happened with these dancers, but it was good to at least get kind of an idea of how much it costs.
Yes.
And it's expensive, right? Because it's an art, it's a job. People want to get paid for the job, and I don't want to lowball people. So I got a quote of about $1,000 for 2 dancers for a 10-minute show, and I was like, fair enough. I can't really afford that right now, but when I can, I will definitely come back. But I think being able to add that on, maybe not this show, but saving up for my next show so I can hire backup dancers. At least now I know the range that I need to be thinking of. And I think it would just elevate the performance so much more.
Smart. Yeah. You're, put the feelers out there. You're thinking a few steps ahead, and that's really smart, doing your homework. And everybody's got a price. Anyone
Totally.
if you want something done well, it should cost money.
Of course, yeah. And that's why I never argue with people oh, come on, Ryan's my friend. You should give me a discount. It's like, no, that's your price. That's your price. I'm not going to argue with you.
Yeah. This is at the end of the day, we've all sacrificed so much for our chosen craft to get good at it. And there's a price for that.
Of course, yeah. And it's the same way if, someone asks me to write music for them, I have my price.
Yeah, for ghostwriting, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was also another thing I thought of doing was ghostwriting originally. Because I was like, wow, this comes really easy to me writing. And I thought about it, and I had a friend who did ghostwriting, but it's also really difficult. It's a very niche area of the music industry, ghostwriting. It's not niche in the sense where nobody knows about it or does it, but it's very niche in terms of who gets the opportunities.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So being able to ghostwrite for big artists, there's not a lot of people who do it. There's usually a handful of people who write for all the artists. Yeah. So it's a very hard, smaller lane of the music industry to get into.
Right.
So I was like, I don't want to make it more difficult for myself. Music's already hard. I'll just stick to this and find something else to do. But yeah, I used to think ghostwriting would be a cool opportunity.
Yeah, maybe for sure at the highest level, I can see it being that way. But a lot of people are just bad at writing lyrics, but maybe have a nice voice too. And so I'm sure that there's even locally there's a demand for that or a place for that. If you could find a way to, even people listening to this show, Dakota's willing to write lyrics for you. So there you go. Absolutely. What a great skill to have. Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Check on this.
Yeah, no worries. This is a great conversation.
Pro Tools. Good. We're live. We're good. So God, we've talked about so many great things today. I've learned so much already. Gotten to know you a lot better. This has been really cool. What did I want to talk about that maybe we haven't gotten into too much? I mean, what do you want your fans to know about you, like as a person, besides like Dakota the artist? Like, what would you like to share about yourself as a person?
Oh, that's a really good question. I've actually never thought about that because, like, to be honest, I've never really met a fan. I mean, I have people after I perform who become fans,
Right.
but I've never met anyone who's like, "Oh, I know your music. I love your music." So I've never really had that question come up. What do I want them to know about me? I don't know. I'm just like a regular person, you know, like who just enjoys music and making music. And I think a lot of the music I make is based off of my own experience and my truth. And I think that's what a lot of music is based off of. So I just want people to listen to my music. And I hope my fans will listen to my music and kind of connect with it somehow. And I also really want to inspire other artists, right? So I want people to hear my music and be like, oh, man, I think I could do something like that. And like go and try and do it, especially for the females. I think we need a lot more female artists would be awesome. Especially in Vancouver, I haven't really met any. A lot of the shows I go to are mostly males. So I think it'd be really cool to like meet other females and like inspire them to create. I don't know. Yeah, that would be basically it. I haven't really thought about that question before.
No, that's fine. I didn't mean to throw you a curveball there.
Oh, no,
but,
it's okay.
I mean, that's super honest, right? Like that's beautiful. When you say at the shows they're mostly female or mostly male, that's the other artists on the bill that night,
Yeah.
or the people in this.
The other artists. On
Yeah,
the bill,
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely we just had Reve on last week, so there's definitely female artists out here, but we got to get you guys connected. More of you guys connected. I'd love to see. You know, I dabbled in this idea a little bit when I was at 2-Track back in the day, but to make like a Vancouver mixtape somehow of just like a bunch of dope people on one project.
That would be great.
You know, I wouldn't say I'm the most connected person in the city, but I know a lot of people. Doing this podcast have branched out a lot. Like the circle's getting bigger and bigger, and I think the more that we can talk about each other and share each other's work and collaborate, and then, you know, put out a project that so many names are on, like, you know, think of the amount of traction that would create.
Oh man, I'd love to create a song with another female. I've never done it. Like all of my features have been guys. And that's mostly because I think like there definitely are more males, like especially when I perform. There are a lot of amazing females, but it's been harder to collaborate. Like I've messaged some and it's always like, oh yeah, I'd love to, but nothing ever happens.
Yeah.
And I think the guys are just, especially the hip hop artists, are just a little more open to it because most of them are only rapping, so they need females, right, to do the hooks. They're like, I need you to do a hook, right? Yeah. Whereas the other female artists, if we're all singers, then, you know, it's not a competition, but kind of a little bit, right? So I just feel like it's been a little bit hard, trying to collaborate with female artists, which I wish it wasn't, but that's just, I guess, how it's been.
Would you see that being like both of you singing, or you rapping on another female?
Oh my God, I'm totally fine with
like
either.
That you'd be down for that too. Hey?
I know there's some female rappers here in Vancouver too who I'd love to collab with. Like I don't really care. I'll do any genre if we vibe, right? Like if we both like each other's music and we can be cohesive on the idea of the song, then I don't care.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I can't wait for whenever that happens.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Maybe I'll mix it. Who knows?
Maybe.
Awesome. So yeah, why don't we wrap it up there? I think we've you know, this has been tremendous. Such a good conversation. I think I know I've learned a lot. Hopefully people have gotten to know you a little bit better. We've got a chance to talk about some really good things. So this has been a lot of fun. And thank you for taking the time to do this.
Oh, no problem. My
and
pleasure.
great to see you again in person after, you know, it's been like a year or so. Because I mean, I'm always looking forward to getting to know the community, getting people from Vancouver that are doing cool shit, like in here, tell their story, like let people know like the behind the scenes, and I think we've really done that. So, Dakota North, what before we go, like what is on the horizon that we should know about coming out from you soon?
Yeah, so I've got a few singles planning to release. I'm going to start going a little bit more into the EDM Chainsmoker area. I wanted to release a few tracks like that and see what the feedback was. So that's basically, in terms of music, that's what I'm planning on releasing. And then I have another show on the 26th at Fortune Sound Club.
Amazing.
Moving on from that, I have a contact now at Levels. So they're doing shows every week at Levels. So hopefully next month I'll be doing a show at Levels
Nice.
as well. And yeah, doing a lot more producing. I produce for a lot of artists now. I have one of my best friends, Mike Kabongo. He just dropped a video and I produced the song. So yeah, just checking out stuff like that and checking out my Instagram, Dakota North Music.
Perfect. I was just going to ask. So
Yeah.
there you go. Dakota North Music. And, YouTube as well. Like imagine there'd be videos of some of your singles that people can see.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I do have one music video right now for my song Paradise, which
Okay.
is like one of the first songs I released. Yeah, and it's just Dakota North. The name is just Dakota North Paradise.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's under Foundation Media, which is my distributors. Yeah.
Awesome.
Foundation Media.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you again. Thank you everybody for listening. Hope you enjoyed the show. I sure did. And we'll talk to you really soon.
All right. Thanks,
Okay.
everyone.
Thanks. Peace.
Bye. Peace.